Hello, here's a little bit from Dr. Johnson on the topic of death. Johnson and Boswell are discussing this topic. Here we go. Boswell speaking. When we were alone, I introduced the subject of death and endeavoured to maintain that the fear of it might be got over. I told him that David Hume said to me, wow, Boswell knew Hume. I told him that David Hume said to me, he was no more uneasy to think that he should not be after his life than that he had not been before he began to exist. A common argument. That's the same. I feel the same way. Or it's not really an argument, it's a position. Johnson. Sir, if he really thinks so, his perceptions are disturbed. He is mad. If he does not think so, he lies. He may tell you he holds his finger in the flame of a candle without feeling pain. Would you believe him? When he dies, he at least gives up all he has. Boswell. Foote, sir, the gentleman named Foote. Foote, sir, told me that when he was very ill, he was not afraid to die. Johnson. It is not true, sir. Hold a pistol to Foote's breast or to Hume's breast and threaten to kill them, and you will see how they behave. Boswell. But may we not fortify our minds for the approach of death? Here I am sensible I was wrong to bring before his view what he ever looked upon with horror. For although when in a celestial frame of mind, in his Vanity of Human Wishes, he has supposed death to be a kind nature's signal for retreat from this state of being to a happier seat, his thoughts upon this awful change were in general full of dismal apprehensions. So Johnson was not at all comfortable with the topic of death. So Boswell realizes his error perhaps in bringing that up. His mind resembled the vast amphitheatre, the Colisæum at Rome. In the center stood his judgement, which, like a mighty gladiator, combated those apprehensions that, like the wild beasts of the arena, were all around in cells, ready to be let out upon him. After a conflict, he drives them back into their dens, but not killing them. They were still assailing him. To my question whether we might fortify our minds for the approach of death, he answered, in a passion, No, sir, let it alone. It matters not how a man dies, but how he lives. The act of dying is not important. It lasts so short a time. Remember, Johnson believed in an afterlife. He added, with an earnest look, A man knows it must be so, and submits. It will do him no good to whine. I attempted to continue the conversation. He was so provoked that he said, Give us no more of this, and was thrown into such a state of agitation that he expressed himself in a way that alarmed and distressed me, showed an impatience that I should leave him, and when I was going away, called to me sternly, Don't let us meet tomorrow. I went home exceedingly uneasy. All the harsh observations which I had ever heard made upon his character crowded into my mind, and I seemed to myself like the man who had put his head into the lion's mouth a great many times with perfect safety, but at last had it bit off. Next morning I sent him a note stating that I might have been wrong, but it was not intentionally. He was therefore, I could not help thinking, too severe upon me, that notwithstanding our agreement not to meet that day, I would call on him on my way to the city and stay 5 minutes by my watch. You are, said I, in my mind, since last night, surrounded with cloud and storm. Let me have a glimpse of sunshine and go about my affairs in serenity, in cheerfulness. Now it goes on. Boswell does stop by Johnson's house and is warmly received, but he knows to not bring that subject up again. It's interesting how that is the perspective of Hume and Foote, of being at ease with the concept of death, of thinking that very argument that death will be apparently no more like what it was like before we were born, and why feel unease at that? That is indeed how I feel. I wonder at Johnson's outright dismissal. I mean, his claim of putting the finger in the flame, that would be a lie to say, oh, it doesn't burn, and that he would be, and therefore claiming that Hume is outright lying, that he is indeed scared or even terrified of death, but chooses not to, and putting the pistol, Johnson's analogy or example of putting the pistol to their breast and seeing how they react then doesn't stand either, because that's a threat to take us out in undue time. I don't believe in free will, but so who knows? But it still feels that way, right? Versus going more at ease to a death in old age when our time seemingly has come. So that's not a good analogy either. I guess Johnson just simply is not comfortable with the idea of death being nothing. Maybe that's tied into more of his religious views as well, and that if he accepted Hume's and Foote's positions, and apparently Boswell's, that death is nothing more than what it was like before we were born, then that may be a threat to his entire, the superstructure of his theology. All right, time for me to get to work.